the Singerly listening station on December 5th, 2016 at about 1:48 p.m. interviewing veteran firefighter Roger McCardell about his experience. Doing the interview today are Robert McKinney and Mike Dixon. Roger, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks for having me today.
Well, our pleasure, and thank you for coming up for the interview.
Thank you.
Roger, would you tell us about when you joined Singerly, what you were interested in, what time frame it was, and what the experience was like?
Yeah, I applied for membership in Singerly in October of 1973, was accepted. Had a pretty good crew there as far as the board of directors went. I was pretty involved in sports, but I always had a passion for the fire service, and I wanted to dedicate some time in my life to get in. So
you said you were interested in sports. What was that about?
I just played a lot of ball, a lot of baseball, involved with the Elton High football team as an athletic trainer, and went through some basic medical training there, and I decided I'd push on with it when I joined the fire department.
Interesting. How old were you, and what was the process of joining like? What was the training experience like, things like that?
It was pretty good. I was 16 years old at the time, and I was brought in as a probationary firefighter, and eventually went to get my Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute. Back then, of course, it was University of Maryland Fire Extension Service. I got my basic fire, completed my EMT at the same time while I was still in high school, and then progressed from there into training.
So, what branches of the service did you specialize in, or did they do that back in those days?
They didn't really do it back then. I mean, we just needed the personnel to go out on alarms and EMS calls. Of course, we didn't call them EMS calls back then. We just called them ambulance calls.
Do you remember your first calls?
I do. It was with Bob McKinney, who's sitting to my left. We had an automobile fire down Oldfield Point Road, and I guess it was 10-1 back at the time, and so we were turned around. We went 10-19. And that's before they went to plain language, but that was kind of funny. I had to
So how soon was that after you joined, Roger?
Once I was in and they gave my gear to me, of course I had no training whatsoever. I was getting ready to go through company level training before the University of Maryland program started up, which is a really, really good training course for a company level. I would say once I received my gear and I was cleared to ride, I would say it was probably 3 days after I got my gear.
So it was that fast? Typically you join and they'll hand you your gear, or you can go on an ambulance call?
Yeah, you go through some walk-arounds and stuff like that so you can know where the equipment was on the apparatus. And then once you were cleared to ride, you were open.
Roger, who was doing the training in those days from the Singerly standpoint?
I think John Denver, if I'm not mistaken. He was one of the training officers. If I could be wrong.
Was it Alton Crawford? Is that a...
No, Alton Crawford was not in there. John Denver, I believe Kevin Farrell maybe.
Okay.
And I know that you were there to some certain extent.
Let me turn the camera here and ask Bob McKinney, a member of the Singerly Fire Company Museum. Mac, do you remember that first call Roger was talking about?
Not really.
That's what I thought you.
No.
I've
been on so many that I can't remember that.
It was one of many, huh? Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, thanks.
Yes, one of many.
I can remember riding on a back step of engine 313, and that was the first rig I rode on.
So that was your first ambulance call. What was your first fire?
That was my first one.
So there was company training, and then along comes University of Fire Service Extension. Am I right about that?
University of Maryland Fire Service Extension, and then they also handled the EMS training back then for your EMT, what was called EMTA back then. It was an 81-hour class.
Mm-hmm.
Not as integrated as into the medical profession as the EMTBs are now. but we still receive some pretty good training from the state.
So EMT comes in as in because the first training, there's no training to ride the ambulance, basically.
I took American Red Cross.
American Red Cross. Who was your instructor for that?
Larry Spry.
Oh, yeah. And then how soon after that, take us to where the EMTs or the emergency medical services start to professionalize, like EMT
well,
training?
Back in the 80s, we had the EMT program pretty well established, and then the cardiac rescue technician, which is like a forerunner of the paramedic program that they have today, that opened up, and I believe I was the second or third class to come out of the county with that training.
Okay. For the CRT?
For the CRT.
Yeah. Were you in the first EMT class?
I was in the second EMT.
Second EMT class. And that was about, 70, what are we thinking?
I started, I want to say, just right after I essentially got in the department, I signed up for the class, and it lasted from the end of 73 until spring of 74.
Okay.
Old Chuck Woods was the instructor.
Did he have somebody with him teaching?
Yeah, he did. He had like
He had a friend. Who was that, Mac?
Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name.
Yeah, I remember too.
But Chuck was working on for the state police as
helicopter.
He was a helicopter.
Yeah.
What did that experience seem like, Roger, going from American Red Cross, literally a first aid course?
Oh, it was a big jump in your training levels. I mean, the tests were intense. You had both practical and written testing, and that had to go through the Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene for your certification.
Okay. All right. So you're getting us into, 74, 75.
Right.
In terms of your fire service career, what comes next? Do you do anything else with it?
Yeah, I ended up in 75 after I graduated from high school. I accepted a seasonal job with the Ocean City Fire Department, and I did that. I worked for those folks 3 or 4 months a year, maybe some call-ins during the off season. I did that for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we had several fellows from the Elton area that worked in Ocean City on a seasonal level, and that would have been like Russell Strickland, Kevin Farrell, Chuck Barton, who I'm very proud of as well. Of course, I'm proud of all these guys. Chuck just recently retired from the Ocean City Fire Department career staff as a deputy chief. We also had George Johnson and a few other guys.
How did you guys find Ocean City? I mean, as the seasonal summer work?
Just from the senior guys who were working down there, like Strickland and Frank Muller. I can't forget him, my gracious. I can't forget Frank. He was very instrumental in getting me on board with the right people down there. Back then, there was no real testing procedure to get on the job. You just had to have your credentials, and more or less, if you knew somebody, you got on the job.
Well, at this point, you're a couple years into your volunteer service in Elkton, and then you're done in Ocean City working seasonal. How did the two compare, or is there a comparison?
I'd say, pretty, especially on the EMS side, everything was pretty comparable because of the training standards that were set forth back then. Fire-wise, Ocean City did things a little different than Elkton did, and not bad either. But they've got a more have a heavier fire load down, especially in the old part of the city, where we were prepared to take stances with the aerial devices and keep it from jumping blocks.
There's a photograph, since you brought that up, that makes its rounds quite often on social media outlets and seems to be one of the most popular singularly photos based on how much I can tell. It shows you operating a deck gun, and I think that was a training session. Can you describe that?
I can remember that quite clearly. I was with Roy Schmussler on the back of engine 314, and we were training on deck gun operations, master stream appliances, down by the Elk Creek, so we could draft and pump at the same time. So that worked very well.
So that was a company training program, Roger?
Yeah, that's a company level training program.
You don't have to remember who was doing that, do you?
I do now.
Yeah. It's a very popular photo, and it just speaks well for the change in the times and the new generation coming on. So how long were you in Ocean City?
From 1975 until 1980.
Okay. So in your career, your professional life or your working life, describe the next couple steps.
I was approached by an individual at DuPont Stein Haskell site. They were hiring at the time, and I was going to college and wanted to be closer to home at that time. So I applied for the DuPont job, and I got it. Started off as a lab technician, and then I progressed to the deputy fire chief of this site, which is actually, for a site like that, was a very, very busy little small emergency response team.
So you were industrial fire department, essentially, right?
Yeah, DuPont was good about it. Of course, they're very safety conscious. And they sent us, I took every class that the industrial program at Delaware State Fire School had, so that was really interesting. Was
there much of that going to Delaware for classes for the volunteers, or did that come about because of your work?
That was there were dedicated classes just for industrial emergency response teams.
Okay. All right, so what comes next?
Well, I worked for DuPont from 1980 until 1990. I was approached by another individual who was actually a member of Singerly. I didn't know if I'd be interested in becoming a regional sales manager selling industrial hose and to move to the West Coast. So I accepted it. I moved out west. I was kind of always interested to see what the guys on the West Coast did. And I really enjoyed it for a few years out there before I got transferred back east.
Excellent. So you've been in municipal fire department equipment sales of various types, yes. Right? And is that what you're continuing to do today?
Yeah, we manufacture fire hose products, and then we sell through distribution. And what I do now, I'm still in the same industry. I'll do dealer training for our distributors, and I'll do end user training as far as flow testing and things like that.
Well, Roger, being at that point, moving from a young teen as a volunteer at the largest company in the county through Ocean City, a substantial resort first responder, to industrial fire department, and then sales on the national level. I'm right about that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What were your experiences like dealing with the big municipal fire departments? Were you drawing on your experience from Singerly?
Oh, my experience with Singerly definitely helped me. Got the basic training that I needed. Of course, I continued my education through University of Maryland, Medfree, and I had a challenge to understand hydraulics to the best of my ability, which I did a pretty good job with. Not trying to pat myself on the back, but that really helped substantially. And the early experiences working for back then it was Angus Fire. It really worked out very well. We had a very intense 3-week sales training program involving all the technical aspects of the product and understanding your dealers and your competition and things of that nature. So Mike, it really worked good.
Okay. So as you progress, so we're say to the middle of your Singerly Fire Service career, what's going on as you in these last couple of decades with Singerly and things like that?
Oh, you've seen it big, and this is just not Singerly, but this is the fire service in general, especially the municipal fire service. The training standards have been really, really tightened. There's a lot more training required now as opposed to the days that I was growing up. And it just kind of, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I've seen the technology of fire equipment involved, apparatus, all of those different things, and it's really good. But it does create some problems, especially for the volunteers. One of the issues that the whole nation faces right now is recruitment and retention. A lot of families, they're working 2 jobs. A lot of people have to work 2 jobs to make ends meet. They don't have time to be volunteers, even although they'd love to be a volunteer. But there is a lot of a lot of training involved, and that kind of cuts out their family life, and a lot of people don't want to do that anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. Roger, how about, how many years have you been involved in Singerly?
It was 43 years in October.
So 43 years is a long time. So Roger, you mentioned that you have a career that spans 5 decades, 43 years of service precisely. Speaking of Singerly, you've seen a lot of personalities, incident commanders, fire chiefs, assistant chiefs of EMS, and you've seen a lot of change. Who do you remember, or what are some of the changes that come to mind?
Well, my first chief was Jack Cook. And I tell you, the guys, when I got in there, pretty daggone tough. You know, if they told you to do something, you did it. Unlike some other areas where not all of that, what's the word I want to use? The regimentation was there back in the early days, and it appears like some of that regimented leadership, it doesn't always stand forward.
Mm-hmm. Were they, the point you make, Roger, about them being tough and running a command and people would follow through, what about their training? Were they training oriented, or where are they coming from in that continuum?
I'm sorry, Mike?
Their training, were they, how oriented were they, because you're talking about older, middle-aged guys, I suppose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How oriented were they to this new type of training and stuff coming in?
They were pretty pro-oriented about it. You know?
Okay.
They, as times progressed, you had no choice, really.
So you mentioned, Jack Cook. Who were some of the other chiefs in your time?
Rodney Founds, John Turnbull, of course, Donnie Hicks, and a host of others I can't recall right off the top of my head.
Okay. Talk to us about the 43 years you've seen both at the national level, and you did a little bit of it earlier, and the company level. What kind of changes have occurred in our local world here?
Well, one thing that everybody has to understand is that fires grow hotter now as opposed to the old timber that we used to extinguish. With all the synthetics involved, there are new water supply requirements, new delivery requirements, and I've seen a lot of big changes with the technology, like I said earlier. Your turnout gear now, for instance, it allows you to go deeper into fires, which can be an issue because you can go so far, and you sometimes, unfortunately, people go to the point
Too far.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Too far, Mac.
Yep.
What would you say about that, Mac?
Yeah, that's true with turnout gear today.
Yeah.
It does. You don't realize how hot it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we first came in.
That canvas coats.
Yeah, we had canvas coats, and we didn't have. We didn't have air packs. We didn't have. We had rubber gloves.
You had a lot of snotty noses coming out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Your ears or your hands started to. You could feel on your hands or your ears.
Those gloves.
Time to get out.
Those gloves, yeah. When you mentioned that, I just was
Then
really...
they came out with the Nomex hoods.
Today, yeah, Nomex hoods.
I always had my ears sticking out of that Nomex hood.
What in the sense, yeah.
Right, so I could see feel how hot it actually was.
Today, you have no idea how hot it is. You don't know. And just think of the people that have gone too far.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening all the time now.
Another issue, I guess.
And like Roger said, today you have no idea what you're dealing with. You have no idea what is in that building. You have don't have a clue.
And your construction standards aren't the best as I think they should be.
No.
They'll throw these houses up, and they're all synthetic, and that's a big issue with the fire service.
Repeat that again, just what you said.
I say your construction standards with
They're not.
new building standards or construction. A lot of this stuff is synthetic now, and of course, like I previously said, the fires burn a lot hotter now than they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Buildings built today aren't fire service friendly.
No. Very good.
No.
I'll be back with you in just a minute, Roger.
You dare.
What's that,
You
Mike?
dare go up on the road.
No. Yeah, Mike, I'd also like to address firefighter safety, the changes I've seen. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of the older members pass away, and a lot of cancer. And I'm sure that there's something to do with the fire service that kind of brought this, massaged this all together. One of the things that we never did was wash our gear, and it's pretty important to wash the gear now because it gets a lot of the carcinogens.
So you were mentioning protective equipment. How's that changed? Can you say a little bit more?
Well, when I started out, we were wearing the old Cairns Senator helmets, which were metal helmets, 3/4 boots. And they're pretty heavy. They got wet. It was tough. Then we finally started to get turnout pants, which helped, especially in the wintertime. And it was a lot different. Now they've got the PBI products with the Gore-Tex liners to keep you cool. And one of the big things that we didn't do, we never washed our gear. And here's that old helmet that I started with.
Another question reflective like that, Roger. So, over the career, you came through with a large group of men that you obviously had a strong relationship with.
Absolutely.
Can you say a little bit about some who've gone on to, using their singularly roots, gone on to higher things or other initiatives?
Absolutely. I'll start with Russell Strickland. He went through the fire marshal's office. He went through the University of Maryland system. He was actually acting director at one time for MIFRI, Maryland Fire Rescue Institute. He ended up going and doing like Homeland Security work for Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Institute, and he has just been recently appointed as the director of the Maryland Emergency Management Agency by Governor Hogan.
And you guys were coming in about the same time, right?
Russell was there like a year or two before I was. Then we have Kevin Farrell. He went through the system, and he went to work for the Aberdeen Proving Ground Fire Department. And now he's retired. And you can't forget about Frank, who was the first paramedic in Cecil County, Frank Muller. He worked for the Sheriff's Department. That's who started the original chase car concept. Which worked out real good at the time. We had an actual medic on the street. Chucky Barton, great guy. He started working for Ocean City just a few years after I started. Chucky stayed on as a full-time employee for the town of Ocean City. He worked his way up through the system and just recently retired as a deputy chief of operations for career services.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we're coming to our time together at the Singularly Listening, coming toward the end of our time. But Roger, based on what we've talked about with you and Bob McKinney and I, is there anything else you would like to share, archive in the company's institutional history as one of the heritage keepers?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm very proud to be a member of Singularly Fire Company. It was a great experience. I'm not real active anymore, unfortunately, because the years are starting to grow upon me, but it gave me my start, it continued my interest, it kept me moving, and I'm thankful for everybody in this department who's helped me over the time, and I just hope that traditions continue.
Excellent. Anything else you want to add?
Not really, just sign up, man, come join us, and take your training, and we need the help.
Thanks. Anything else you want to say?
Not really.
Okay. Well,
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you for your time. This will be archived into the museum collection, and a brief outtake of it will be shared with appropriate photos, like the one we were talking about, on YouTube at some point. So we're coming down on, So we're coming down on closing time with the tape, 2:27. Roger has indicated that he doesn't have anything else he'd like to add, but I will add one more. Roger, just as a final closing comment, reflect, was it a good experience? Was this the right thing to do when you were 16 years old starting and now knowing what you...
It was the best thing that I ever did in my life. I mean, it was the best thing that I ever did in my life. It set up a nice career for me. You had to work hard to get where I've gone to today, but it's been the best career I could have ever had in my life.
So you would not have changed this career path, the volunteer path, the emergency, the contact with emergency services. All right, thank you so much, Roger.
Thank you.